What up, Jonathan? Welcome to my channel. My name is Stefania if you're new here. So today we are going to be reviewing the new Natasha Denona Zendo palette. So this is a $65 palette. She did come out with like a mini Zendo palette first, which they're not that similar by any means. I actually didn't get that one, but anyways, we are going to go over individual eye swatches of the metallic shades in here, as well as do some looks, and I'm going to give you guys my thoughts. So definitely got some of those, but let's go ahead and get into this review. Please don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and let's go ahead and jump into this video. All right, so here is the box packaging. It's like this, I would say maroon bronzy type packaging. And we've talked about this before. I feel like we've talked about this multiple times. I used to love the leather packaging. The hard cases aren't my favorite, which I was fine settling with that for like the smaller palettes because it's like, they're 65 compared to 129, but I feel like she keeps doing this anyway. But maybe it's just me that's bothered by it. But it is pretty packaging. It does remind me a lot of, well, I think every Natasha Denona palette now reminds you of a different Natasha Denona palette. But I feel like at this point I'm just like a collector, if you will. So, but there were some exciting shades in here, which, like, for me, I know it all depends on the person, right? Like, I love mint green, so I was really happy to see I don't know why I don't wear them very often, but I do really love them. But I do see definitely like similarities, so we will kind of go over more palettes, but I'm going to do some individual eye swatches just to kind of see what we're working with the metallic shades. So my only other complaint off the bat, okay, and then I will get in depth with all of its glory while we swatch, but we're going to start with, let's go with the shades that are probably the most similar. So let's go in with Luster and then Yama. So we'll just do, and I have nothing else on my eyes. I'll prime them before I do a look, but they're not gonna be primed for this part. It should be rough swatches. Her and Pat McGrath, love you both. You are my high-end women that I have the utmost makeup respect for. However, I am so tired of these golds. Like, why does every palette need a gold? Oh, you tell me. You tell me. Other than that, I'm done. At least Pat McGrath is giving us blush, right? So I'm very, very excited about that. But I just feel like every palette, I'm like, oh, come on. Like, there are more colors. Even though I do wear gold. But I just feel like it's just something where, like, she literally has palettes dedicated to gold that I'm just like, we don't need more, you know? So this is like it's like a medium tone gold. It's like a little bit of orangey in there. My favorite types of golds are definitely like white golds. And then this actually looks like it's gonna shift. So it looks more like it's got that greenish, yeah. Okay, I'm happier with this. I was like, it didn't look like it was pure gold, but still, I was like, oh. So let's pack this on a little bit more. I'm gonna turn down the lighting so you guys can like really see the true colors of these. But this one definitely doesn't like pack a punch. Like, I think it's more so gonna be a topper shade. But it's shifting from that like purple to like green. I'm okay about it. I'm not like over the moon about it, only because like it kind of reminds me of the ones we have in the gold palette. But I'm not trying to be negative here, okay? Once we get past these two, I think we'll be really excited for the rest. These were just the two that I was just kind of like, okay. So we got them out of the way right to begin with. And these might be some of your favorites, and that's totally fine. So this is what they look like. And then I'm excited to really dip into like the pinks. Like the pink, the corals, and the mint is what like sold me on this thing. So let me take these off and we'll do some more. Okay, so next off, we are gonna go into Aura. And let's go into Aura and Tranquil. So like the peachy shade and then the more pink one. So I am definitely into those tones for like summertime. Yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on this? Like, Were you excited about it? I was at least, I wouldn't have paid $129, but I was like, okay, I do like this color story. There's definitely ones, like if you guys want to see a regrets video, like now that I have so much from Natasha Denona and the high-end brands, like mostly Natasha Denona in terms of like a lot of palettes, like there's definitely ones where I'm like, why did I get that? And then there's some that I'm like, I still love that palette. Like even though I'm talking crap about gold, I'm like, I love her gold palette. All right, so this one I definitely feel like I have to like pack on. It's a gorgeous like orangey color, like a sunset type color, but I do feel like I'm having to like, it's not extreme payoff at the beginning. Like I do have to like kind of mess with it a little bit more, but it, oh, look at that color. I do really like the shade of it. And then, yeah, let's go in with the pinky shade. Sometimes it's hard to tell with the powder, like the cream to powder, like which ones are shimmers and which ones are mattes. And I'm a sucker for pinks. So I really, really like this shade. And you don't see her doing a lot. Like I know, like even the Love palette, it wasn't the type of pinks that I usually go for. Like I love like rosy, like rose gold type pinks. All right, so here are the next two. I really like these. These are both shades that I feel like are reasons why I bought the palette, and ones like go-to shades, especially for summer. I love peachy tones. I love these types of pinks. So for me, these are probably going to be my favorite two of the palettes. And I do think they're gorgeous. Yes, this took a while to build up, but now that it's on the lid, it looks fine. So let's move on. All right, last few shades. So we're a little uneven here. I have the shade Sense, and then we have the blues to play with. So I'm gonna do the shades Sense and Flow on one eye, just because I feel like if I do these two, like, I don't want them to flow into each other so that you guys can't tell like the true color. So let's take Flow. I just think of Aunt Flo. I just like, which I never said that. I always hated it when someone said that. I'm like, ew. So here we go. That is a pretty blue. It's like a peacock blue. And then let's take Sense. Sense is like that really pretty maroon, bronzy type color, like that like where it's not really maroon, it has some brown in there. It's very pretty. And I do love these shades, especially like blown out all over the lid. And then let's do Equilibrium, which is the darker blue. You guys know I'm not really someone who wears dark blue. I don't know why, I'm just not. But it is a really pretty color. And then let's, you know what, let's play with this real quick. Let's go ahead, I know it's a rough swatch, but that's what we're doing here, okay? I'm gonna take Yama, that duochrome type shade, and pack that on top and see if it transforms the color. Added a little bit more sparkle, but it wasn't like anything super impressive. Like, I think the toppers in the actual gold palette are definitely more intense than this one, but it did change it a little bit. So I'm gonna take this off and then we'll play obviously with some looks. Okay, so let's get started. I think I want to play with this shade Relief first. So like this more of like that coral pink, and then we'll probably go ahead and blend in. Oh gosh, do I want, let's swatch these. Like, do I want to go peachy or do I want to go more pink? The peach is very, very light. Like, I don't even know if you guys can see that. Let me, yeah, oh. And the coral's darker than I thought, which is kind of interesting. So those are the two shades. But I'd say you can kind of, definitely that lower one, which is the shade Calm, might be one I would more so like use to blend out or put at the top, but like that's not gonna be deep enough to like do a whole lot, you know? So let's go in with Relief. It's a very pigmented shade, blending out totally fine. I did have a lot of issues though with the Truco Loco palette for some reason, and I've usually been fine. But I don't, Like I've had other people be like, oh, like I have reactions to her eyeshadows. And I've never been one of them. But my gosh, that palette, for some reason, every shimmer shade of that palette, like, I don't mind a little bit of redness. Like if my eyes turn a little red and they're not bothering me, I don't feel like it's a huge deal. But I'm gonna go ahead and just blend out Calm on the other one. That way you guys can like see how it builds up, and I want to know too. So, but usually I'm fine with that. And I'm like, it is what it is. My eyes are pretty sensitive. But it got to the point where they were itchy and then they like were red. But then the next day, like they were super flaky. And I was just like, this is not going to work for me. Like it was not good. So I tried multiple shades to be like, maybe it's just the one, like that one bright orange type shade. But no, it was that shade, the magenta shade. And I don't have those issues with like her older palettes. Like even the ones that are more colorful, like the Leela. So I don't know what happened, but it did not work out for me. I was really sad about it because that was definitely a palette where I was like, this is something new to my Natasha Denona collection. So regardless, my face has been drier than dry lately. It is what it is. So like I said, Calm is not, I mean, I've dipped into here like 4 or 5 times, and it's not really like, this is, I think, probably as good as you're going to get in terms of building up that color. So if you have my skin tone or you're darker, that shade is not probably going to, I'm not saying it's not going to show up, but it's definitely not going to make an impact, which is sad because it was definitely one of my favorites. So you guys can just, this shade here is the one that's just not working out. But this one is gorgeous. So I am going to go ahead and add some of that relief shade over here just to even them out. I will say some of the oranges do remind me a little bit of the, what was that, the Tropic palette? There's so many at this point that I'm just like, oh. I was trying to think the other day that I was like, what do I, like when you say, what do you want to see from Pat McGrath? It's not eyeshadow palettes anymore. I'm like, I don't mind seeing the quads with all the special shades, but I feel more so like where I'm just like, I just want to see blushes, bronzers, face stuff. Like there's a lot of that with Pat McGrath that I'm like, yes. Natasha Denona, she's a little bit further along, but I also can't think of things from her that I just really go crazy for. I have a few lipsticks that I really like, but that's like, I feel like her go-to thing is also eyeshadows, where I'm just like, she has more stuff in her brand, but they don't draw me in the same way. So I do really love this shade, and I'm going to take a little bit of that Calm shade just because now I feel super uneven. Not super, but this is kind of what I would use it for, just to blend out the top. I'm going to blend just a little bit of the shade Balance, which is this brown shade, and then we're going to smoke it out and put this in the outer corner, the Mindful shade. So what I have really been liking from Natasha Denona is I feel like she's been doing more looks on herself, and I find that very useful, just because for the longest time I was like, my eyes don't look like these models. Like, I don't have that type of lid space, so I feel like that's been way more useful, where I actually feel like I'm watching her again to like learn something, because I'm just like, okay, that's more of like the style that I like, is like things that aren't perfect, you know, like that, like the models she uses, I'm like, the lid space, what a nice, like, what a nice thing. But how many of us have that? And if you have that, you know, I'm jealous of you. So this is actually lighter than I thought that it looks in the pan, which is fine. It's still deepening up the outer V. It's just not like, I thought it was gonna be a lot deeper. But yeah, I'd love to know what are your guys' thoughts? Like, what do you want to see from her that would make you like super interested? And I think a lot of us just in general, it's not even Natasha Denona, like just makeup brands in general lately, like it's just, you know, kind of just like, I don't have money for this stuff anymore, so I really need to think about my purchases. And this one, I don't know why, for a long, I was like, I'm not gonna get it, and then I was like, I ordered it. But I will say, I am liking this look so far. Sometimes, even at first, like if I'm like, this isn't my favorite, they grow on me. Like I just need to use it a little bit more. And like I said, I'll probably end up taking this with me on my, we're just going camping in Colorado to go see my sister, so it's not like we're like, you know, gonna be anywhere crazy, but I will probably take this with me to see. But sometimes these, like, the neutral palettes grow on you, you know? As much as everyone at the beginning wants to be like, I know that neutral palette, I'm like, if this is what you reach for, it's what you end up using, you know? So, or at least I know I do. I'm gonna take a little bit more of that Relief shade just because I feel like I lost it just a little bit with blending it in. And I do want to swatch this shade Mantra before I forget. Those Mantra and Zeal, especially Zeal, these types of shades, especially in her cream to powder, they're hard to formulate in general just by the shades that they are, but I always feel like they can look a little muddy and just not be that amazing. So yeah. The green is actually fine. Mantra is actually okay. But you guys can tell from that Zeal shade, the olive shade, you are going to probably have to work with it just a little bit more. And like I said, that's just kind of the shade, like those ones that are like not black but not brown, like they're like that in-between type of shade. I miss her really old matte formula. So, okay, I want to go on with Tranquil, which is the pink shade, and then maybe a little bit of this one. I have not been biting my nails. I'm so proud of myself. This is the first time in my life where I haven't been, not biting. Biting sounds so gross, just like picking. I haven't been picking at my nails. I'm just like, as long as I keep them painted though, that's the key. As soon as they start chipping is when I want to go like nuts. See, I really like that shade. Like that to me is, I'm like, oh, these are colors that just make me feel really pretty. So I feel like everyone has a shade like that. And I think this is mine. And then we're gonna go into that shade Sense, which is that bronzy shade. And I'm just going to tap that in through here. And then on this side, let's go in with Aura, which is that orange one. And then when we do the lower lash line, we'll kind of figure it out. I'm not going anywhere, so I don't mind if it doesn't match. It's fine with me. I'm just gonna kind of try to pack that on. It's definitely not as intense as the other orange, like I was saying, from the Chusco Loco palette. So I'm liking it, but I wish it was a little bit more vibrant. Like between the two, I definitely like this shade a little bit more. I'm going to take the shade Balance. I just put a little bit of Matte Costa Riche in the waterline. So that brown, just so we can see it on its own. And we're going to use that to just smoke it out. All right, and then on a brush, I'm going to take, obviously on a brush, but on my little like Pro Smudge brush, I'm going to take the shade Luster, which is the gold shade. And we're just going to play with that just a little bit right through here. Okay, and then I am going to grab a different palette for a highlight shade because I don't feel like this has one. Like I said, Yama is just like a topper shade. It's definitely not going to give me anything in the inner corner. And since I've already used that gold, there's just not any option for that. So I'm going to go ahead and, actually, do I want to mess with the green? Like I said, I'm not going anywhere, and this could ruin the whole thing, but like, I'm not going anywhere. So, let's dip into this shade, this Breath shade, which I think is gorgeous. And I think that's what it was. When you scroll in the Sephora, like on this palette, it does like the shade, the looks that she created looked really interesting, and like combinations that like I probably wouldn't have immediately thought of. And that's what made me pull the trigger. I kept being like, no, no, no. And then when I saw those, I was kind of like, yes. So I'm just dipping in here. These shades, of course, are gonna work better in a packing motion than in a blending one. So I'm kind of just trying to. I think that's actually a nice little highlight, but you can't see it that much. So it is a shade that you're gonna have to kind of build up, this mint green. But yeah, I've now, that's good enough. I'm like, I've dipped into that like 5 times. All right, so for blush, I'm gonna use the shade Fresco. This is the Laura Mercier. I brought this at the Sephora haul. And then we're gonna do some bronzer. So I did buy the LYS bronzer, and I definitely got a shade a little bit darker. I don't know about you guys. When I put on bronzer, sometimes I'm like I love bronzer, okay? I apparently get one like every other month, I feel like, because they're just one of those things that I'm just in love with. But it's like I go somewhere, and like when I'm doing it in here or like in my bathroom, I feel like I put on a good amount of bronzer. And then when I take pictures, I'm like, where's the bronzer? So I don't know if I'm just nuts or what, but I did get a shade that was a little bit darker than I probably should have. And I'm just gonna go in light-handed, but I watch, like I love Kinky Sweat's channel, and she was swatching all of these, and like the lighter shades, like you could pretty much find exact matches for, like in her collection. Since I said I have a lot of bronzers, I had the ones that she was swatching it against, and this was the one where I was like, okay, I don't have that, but I definitely have the other ones. So this is the first time I've ever tried the brand. It's a cute little triangle. I do like it, and it's so affordable. So I'm hoping I really like it, but not enough to want to go buy the whole thing, you know, because you slow down. But we're gonna dip into here lightly, but this is the shade Courage. And this seemed a little bit more on the neutral side. They had one that looked more for like olive skin tones, which would work for me, but it was really similar to like the Charlotte Tilbury one. So I'm just gonna dip lightly in here, and I think it's gonna be totally fine. It's all about how buildable, you know? I could not bring myself to buy. I wanted to like try out the new Jaclyn Hill stuff, and I was like, even today I put some contour on because I was like trying to see if I could get back into it, and I was like, I just don't do the full coverage stuff anymore, you know? So it just doesn't really, like, I feel like today I'm like, oh, I did full coverage today, and that's just not usually something I do. I like this bronzer though. So I did put a little bit of contour on before this. I always look at my chin because I'm like, it always looks like I didn't put foundation on, or like it's like the, I don't know why, but I always feel like my chin looks shiny. But I'm liking this bronzer a lot. But yeah, I wonder if you guys got that stuff, let me know what you think. I still might get the palette because obviously I still put powder underneath my eyes. But to me, I was just like, you don't need this right now. You have powders. And there's only so much you can say about a powder, you know? So, I'm really excited about this whole bronzer situation. All right, highlight-wise, I'm going to go into this Jaclyn Cosmetics High Volt. All right, so since it's Natasha Denona, I was like, kind of like, maybe I'll go in with these. So I have Maria and I have Andrea. Andrea is definitely more of like the neutral shade where I'm just like, do I feel like really like going for like the no lips type look? And I've only used this once, so only because they sent me the wrong shade, like Sephora did, 3 times. And like, it was a thing. I was like, I know your barcode, like something has to be messed up because I've ordered Maria now and it's just labeled wrong or something. I don't know. Not that it's bad. I'm going to go ahead, obviously, and use a lip liner to deepen it up. But let's go ahead and do some swatches. I'm kind of going to like lay everything out just so you guys can see them all together. I don't really see a point now of like swatching everything because like I can just tell you off the bat, this is going to be very similar. So I'm just going to kind of show you guys on the floor what everything looks like, and maybe do a few comparison swatches if they look exactly the same. All right, so this is in the dark, and I'm gonna open up the shade so you guys can see it in natural sunlight. But we have the gold palette, we have the new Zendo palette, we have the bronze palette, Sunset, Sunrise, and Metropolis. I'm not wearing pants, so hopefully you guys can't really see me in the mirrors. But yeah, this is what they all look like close together so you guys can like really see that, and then we'll get into some swatches right now, and I'm gonna open up the blinds. All right, so this is natural lighting, so you guys can really see like the true colors, and I bet you right now, would you be like, where is the palette? Because I don't think I would, because it's not even in there yet. So but you guys can kind of just see the similarities between a lot of her palettes. All right, so now we got the new one in there. So all the way to the right is the Zendo, and then we have the bronze, which I think are probably the most similar. And I really think that, like, other than the fact that, like, you don't have the few greens, I still think this is one of my favorites. And I definitely don't think that this one will beat out this one. And you guys can tell what I meant by, like, the pinks and the Love palette. It's more of, like, mute. I mean, I guess it's more muted as well. But, like, that shade is probably super similar to that Relief shade. I mean, not exact dupes, but definitely similar. Or let's see here, because I can definitely Let's go ahead and swatch Soul. So there you got those three shades that are all pretty much in the same family, and a lot of the tones of the transition shades are very, very similar. But I think these are better. Like, if you're looking for oranges, I like the ones in the Metropolis a little bit better. And then this one I just brought out. This is the Leela palette, because I felt like it was gonna kind of be similar to a little bit of, like, Through Those shades. And if I were to bring out the Sunset palette, but yeah. All right, and then I did pull out the Gold palette as well as the Sunset palette, so you guys can kind of see those similarities as well, because her gold one does have some blues in there. So, like, let's swatch these two. Those are pretty similar off the bat. So I wouldn't say, like, the blues are so unique in here to where, like, you would be like, okay, then it's worth it to have both. I don't really think that. And I find the toppers in this one way more unique. And then let's go ahead, like, this shade for sure. And then from the new palette, yeah, look at those two. And I still feel like the Sunset one is more intense than the new one, for sure. So to me, especially now seeing it all out, I've kind of come to my conclusions. But let me know if this was more useful for you, because, like, obviously swatching all these shades would just be a little too insane to kind of try to get through. So I hope that this was a useful way of doing it. I feel like I have to, like, mess with my eyebrow a little bit more. Like, if you do the ABH brow freeze and you put on just, like, the tiniest bit too much, it, like, looks just like I mean, it kind of looks like snot. So I'm hoping I can't see that in the footage, but just know that I know it's there. And I just, like, flicked it out and then it was fine. But, you know, of course it was, like, after everything. So anyways, how do I feel about this guy? I have very mixed feelings. I don't feel like if I didn't buy it, I regret it a little. Okay. But let me explain why. It's not so much that I feel like it's a bad palette by any means. There's no reason for it to be that harsh in terms of, like, what I think about it. It's just, for some reason, I feel like it's just more muted than I thought it was going to be. Like, I thought the peachy shades were going to be more vibrant. And, like, you know, like I said, like, the calm shade doesn't really do much, especially if you're my skin tone or deeper. Like, you're not going to really see it that much. Aura, like, I just feel like it's not popping on my eye the way I want it to. That pink shade I'm in love with. Like, don't get me wrong, okay? And, like, even the mint, like, just trying to put that pop of color on, like, I just feel like this is just, it looks like the colors it is, but they're a little bit more muted than I wanted them to be, which just depends on your preference. Like, you might love that, and that might be, like, something you're more comfortable working with in colors that you prefer. For me, I just think that this isn't one where I would say, like, it's gonna add to your collection. The formula just isn't as amazing as some of her other palettes to me. Like, this wouldn't be one where I'd say, like, oh, if you don't have a lot of Natasha Denona, like, you should get this one because it's going to give you a good mix because you got the neutrals and the greens. I don't think I feel like that. I feel like this one, it just was more muted than what they usually are. And, like, we pay that price point because we're usually just so, like, but look at this. Doesn't matter that I have you know, 50 rose golds. Like these are the rose golds that pop, you know what I mean? So I'm not disappointed, but I'm also not over the moon, like excited about it. I'm just still on that, like I need to use it more. And like I said, I didn't want you to think I started off the video like, you know, like most of the time I still get it and I'm like, but I'm happy I got it. But this just isn't one of those times. So to me, I'm going to use it and maybe it will grow on me a little bit more. Like I said, it's just, this is one of those palettes where I think it's going to take a little bit more work than the rest of hers. And it just kind of depends on you if you think that's worth that price point. So I'm like giving this like a B- type thing. Like I'm not loving it. I'm not loving the quality of the shades as much as I usually do. So even the Circo Loco, like even though I had that issue with my eyes breaking out, I would still definitely recommend that over this. It's just the more expensive one. But yeah, that's how I feel about it. So I always feel bad like saying that. I'm like, I'm not tearing it apart. It's not the worst thing I've ever bought. And I'm not like, oh my gosh, it's awful. It's just, would I in good conscience be like, go spend your money on it? Not really. So the bronzer I'm loving. Like I said, I love the eye look I came up with. I like the pink side much better. So yeah, that is it for me. Let me know your thoughts. Like I said, you guys can tell by my Natasha Denona like collection. I love her. So, you know, it's not like I'm like sitting here saying anything horrible because I will still buy from her. I still get excited about the brand for the most part. So yeah, that is it for me though. Please don't forget to hit that like button. Please don't forget to subscribe if you like this video. And I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it because like I said, I think a lot of people were mixed on this. Like it definitely wasn't like the little mini Zendo in any way. So that is it though. Goodbye.